Hey guys, welcome back to an episode of Talks with Trav. My name is Travis Hogan. I'm the owner of Aimrite International. We are bringing you a video today that is very important and a question that gets asked by a lot of our customers, but also a lot of people that use roller guns that might not understand why we do what we do with the way we set up our roller guns. So what I'll do is I'll give you a bit of a background and then we'll get right into it. Pretty much I've been making and manufacturing roller guns for the last almost 9 years now. Since day one I've set our roller guns up this way. It's just I guess, you know, with everything there's personal preference, but there's also your own personal knowledge and your own personal experience. So the method that I used may differ from other manufacturers or other dive shops, the way they set spear guns up. However, the way we do it is for a number of reasons, and I'll explain those. So our guns have been used by some of the most competent and experienced divers in the world. These divers have shot some incredible fish, as well as some of our customers have also shot some amazing fish over the last 8 years using our roller guns. And so what I'll do now is I'll go into a bit of depth about why we set these guns up this way. And as you'll notice, the first thing you'll notice is our rubbers finish about halfway to 3/4 down the barrel. All rubber stretches, okay? So no matter what brand of rubber you're using, the rubber over time will stretch. For example, these rubbers that we use, they're USA latex rubbers. These are some of the best spear gun rubbers you can buy. We use the Primeline rubber. We find that it's just the best rubber out there for longevity as well as performance. Now, I've had these rubbers on my gun for not even maybe a month and a half, and already they've stretched from 50 centimeters when I cut the rubber and made the bands to 52.5 centimeters, almost 53 centimeters. So that's in a rubber length of 50 centimeters. So those people that have rubber stretching the whole length of their gun, what they will have is over time that rubber will eventually stretch. Now, if your rubbers are stretched all the way back to an anchor point, so there is no adjustment you can make. Once your rubbers are stretched all the way to the anchor point, that is it. The only way to adjust your rubbers if they start getting a bit loose or they start losing a bit of power is to take the rubber off. You've got to then cut it, grind it, reinsert either a bridle insert or a piece of Dyneema or whatever you're using, and then you've got to retie that and then refix it to the gun. Now, the big disadvantage of having your rubbers all the way to the very end of the anchor point is that you can't make adjustments on the boat or on a trip easily. So if you get out there and you plan to go for a dive and you get out, you're all excited, you jump in the water and you notice that your rubbers are a little bit slack underneath, then unfortunately you've got no way of adjusting that tension other than cutting and retying those bands. The reason we have, I guess, the Dyneema that joins to the anchor point is it is very simple to just undo, I guess, this knot here. It's just a knot that loops back onto itself. It's not necessarily a knot. Take that off, adjust it, put it back on. You can do that in the water or on the boat, and it's very simple to adjust to get a bit more longevity out of your rubbers. So what you'll find is the shorter rubber lengths with the Dyneema gives you a lot of opportunity to adjust your rubbers. Now you can also adjust them the other way. So if you wanted to take a bit of tension out of your rubbers because you're having a bit of difficulty loading it, what you can do is change out this piece of Dyneema to a slightly longer piece of Dyneema to allow you to get that, I guess, that first bit of tension over the rollers and then back into the notch on the spear. The same goes if your roller gun basically has rubber that goes from the rollers all the way back down, and then it might go around like an anchor point and then back up to the other side. So basically the same thing again, same as having your rubbers stretched all the way to the anchor point. There is no way for you to adjust that rubber, either make it looser or tighter, other than basically removing the rubbers from your spear gun, cutting them, rounding off that rubber if that's what you do, reinserting that insert and then tying the bands again. Like I said, that's something you can't do on the fly, out in the water or on the boat unless you have the right materials, but also it's going to take you a good 10 minutes to do all that sort of stuff. So that's another reason why we end the rubbers here, and we've got the dyneema that you can use to adjust your rubbers. What I'll go into now is the performance. So a lot of people go, oh, okay, you're not getting as much power out of your gun as a gun that's got, you know, full length rubbers. Well, that's absolutely nonsense, because what I do is I make the rubber lengths to a certain length. I then tension them, you know, between 5 and 10 centimeters, just to have enough tension on them to keep them nice and tight under the gun so they don't get loose and they can't get tangled up in any of your lines. But what we do is we run that short pre-tension with shorter rubbers. However, once you load this gun back to the rear notch, that rubber is stretched at 350%, the same as it would be if I had rubbers all the way back to the anchor point. The only difference is your rubbers are slightly longer to get back to the anchor point. So rather than have, I guess, no adjustment in the spear gun, we make the rubbers shorter. They're just as powerful, they're using the same amount of tension, they just don't have an excessive amount of pre-tension like other roller guns do. We use the dyneema underneath to create that extra tension, but there's just as much power in this setup as there would be for someone using full length rubbers. Another advantage to not having all that tension underneath and on top is the more tension you have on your bands at rest, the more likely they're going to perish a lot quicker. Having rubber that's constantly stretched out makes it susceptible to perishing, just because it's always under duress, always under tension, and it creates an opportunity for the salt water, the sun and everything like that, the UV light and stuff like that to, I guess you could say, attack the rubber, making it perish a lot quicker. And when it perishes a lot quicker, your rubber also becomes a lot more slack. Now, if you've got full length tension on your rubbers, you can't adjust them. So that's another positive by having that adjustment and not having the full length rubbers. Another reason might be you want to run your rubbers this way, and the reason we do it is the cost of rubber. Obviously, by the time we have this rubber manufactured in the United States, it gets sent overseas. We pay shipping duties, taxes, there's overheads, all that sort of stuff. So the price of rubber sort of is a fairly bit higher here in Australia than it would be overseas. Unfortunately, we can't really do much about that. But, you know, on average, you're looking at $40 to $45 per meter, depending on the type of rubber you buy. Obviously, the cheaper the rubber, the quicker it will perish, the less longer that it will last you. This rubber I've found over the years lasts a very long time. By using a high quality rubber and not constantly having it stretched out, you will save the amount of times you need to change your rubbers over. So, you know, in a calendar year, if you change your rubbers twice a year versus 3 times a year, using those 2 different methods, so I use the shorter rubbers, another person might use longer rubbers, it can almost double the cost of your rubber for that year, you know, at $40 per meter. I think that will almost conclude my talk today. If you've got any questions, feel free to send me a private message. Personally, this is my go-to setup. This is the new Vendetta. As you can see, I've set this up how I set every customer's gun up. I don't do anything fancy for my guns or anything different. All the guns that I manufacture, I use them almost identical straight off the shelf. So as you can see, you know, the rubbers, they finish about half to 3/4 of the way down the gun. They're under about, you know, 10 centimeters of pre-tension. These rubbers will last a lot longer than, I guess, rubbers that are under full tension. When we set our guns up here in the workshop, what we do is we set all the guns up and they come to you like this with rubbers stretched. I highly recommend, when you're not using your gun, is to take the rubbers and take the tension off them to preserve them. You don't really have to put them in the fridge. As long as you store the rubbers in a cool, dry area, they should be fine. However, make sure you do release that tension. It will preserve the life of your rubbers. Look guys, like I said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Some manufacturers and some people that set guns up may set them up with full length rubbers. What I'm trying to do is give you the information as to why we set our rubbers up the way we do, because I truly believe that rubbers being rubbers, they are a perishable item. They are something that stretches and doesn't contract back to its original length. So you need to have adjustment in your rubbers. If you don't have adjustment in your rubbers, then you're going to be cutting them and retying them, and that is an absolute pain in the butt. So I highly recommend setting your guns up like this. You'll still get maximum power and performance out of the gun, and you will also have a much better experience because you'll be able to adjust this on the fly. Well guys, that's it from me. I hope you guys got a lot out of this video. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these because I feel like people want to know the tricks of the trade and also want to get their head around as to why manufacturers do what they do. Like I said, everyone's different. If you've got questions for the type of gun you use, feel free to go back to your manufacturer, speak to them, and they might be able to tell you why they do things the way they do. I'm telling you why Aimrite does it the way we do, and personally it's worked for us, and we won't be changing the way we do it because as far as I'm concerned, I think it's perfect. Alright guys, thank you and cheers.